3, 2, 1. Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nizzy coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial today on the channel. I wanted to go over today how to add a lot of body, size, tone, and get that beefy lead vocal that sounds very present rather than to get the little skinny vocals that sound like they scaring they pussy. I want to show you guys how to add some body, some weight, some size to your vocals. Let's jump right into this trick today. Let's not waste no time. Let's go. Let's listen to the music real quick, then we'll go over the trick.
Excuse, I'm keeping it consistent. I keep on reminiscing on them times that I had nada, just some roaches in the kitchen. We're never gonna accept that I had to make my own decisions. Now I don't do no wishing, if I want it, I'ma get it. I feel like Mario, them shoes give me a power up. I got them angels watching, never gonna run out of luck. We smoking non-exotic, ain't nobody high as us, ain't talking buttercup. All we do is power puff, and I'm popping perks. Got me feeling pretty powerful. Pull up in the Porsche, then I push it down the avenue. Praying we all get paid, push the fake away they play. I'm posted with my partners, right with them till end of day. I'm seeing different colors, like a lot of scope, and it be mostly green. I get a lot of dope, I be on solid yeah.
Okay, so you guys get a general idea of what the vocal sounds like. So in a situation like this, I wanted the vocal to sound a little bit thicker. So I chose a plugin like this. It's called Bark of Dog. It's a free plugin. And let's go over what Bark of Dog is. So to me, this plugin, I like to use it as a bass resonance tool. Another very popular plugin that a lot of people talk about is also the Voice of God, the Lil Labs Voice of God, the VOG or whatever. You know, you see a lot of people using that to beef up things like kick, 808, and also a vocal. So I wanted to show how to use something like this as a vocal plugin. Another one, Brainworks, a sub filter. I think that's another one too. And what these plugins are doing pretty much is they're like a resonance filters pretty much, right? So in order to pretty much what you do is you got to locate kind of like where that low mid, that lowest type of mid range of a vocal is, where a lot of that body is at. It not the achu frequency, not the bad nasally frequency, but there is a little bit of there's a lot of definition, a lot of body, a lot of size, a lot of beef, a lot of weight inside of the low mid. Your heart is made of the low mid energy. Sometimes people say, I have a heavy heart, because sometimes the way your heart can beat, it can get heavy, and those low mid frequencies make up your heart. So it's a situation where like the VOG plugin, what it's doing, the Bark of Dog 2, is it's kind of like you use the frequency knob. The Bark of Dog is a little bit better, but you kind of like find where that frequency is at, right? You boost it like crazy and you cut everything below that. And the reason why I like to use something like this on a vocal is because it kind of cuts off all the unnecessary fluff I don't need. It kind of finds where is that actual that meat at, the size at, where's all the fat, where's all the blubber in the vocal, and it enhances it. It makes it very obvious that wow, and your ear kind of perceives it to be bigger than what it really is. So let's actually go into depth a little bit. I'm gonna bypass the in and out real quick.
I'm keeping it consistent. I keep on reminiscing on them times that I had nada, just some roaches in the kitchen. We're never gonna accept that I had to make my own decisions. Now I don't do no wishing, if I want it, I'ma get it. I feel like Mario, them shoes give me a power up. I got them angels watching, never gonna run out of luck. We smoking non-exotic, ain't nobody high as us, ain't talking buttercup. All we do is power puff, and I'm popping perks. Got me feeling pretty powerful. Pull up in the Porsche, then I...
That's the beautiful thing about something like the Voice of God or even the Bark of Dog. You see how that resonance filter, the vocal sounds a lot more cleaner. It sounds cleaner with more body, right? Interestingly enough, that's coming from that very, very steep slope. You guys gotta understand the slope of the octave. Sometimes if you do a high pass filter, but it got a 12 dB octave, it's still letting the rest of the stuff coming through. It's like a little lazy security guard. It's still letting people pass through without checking it. But when it's on a 96, dB octave, it turns into hall blart. It's doing too much. Now it's really being so serious about its job, and it's not letting nothing come through. It's cutting off absolutely everything. And it's a pretty good move for vocals because it adds some presence. So let's think about somebody who I want to relate this to is a motherfucker like Inspector Gadget. You remember that boy Inspector Gadget, man? One thing about Inspector Gadget, when he had his magnifying glass, which is kind of like Bark of Dog or the VOG Voice of God, it kind of puts a spotlight on specifically what he wants to see. But in the process of it putting a spotlight on the stuff, right? When you have a magnifying glass, it makes everything else around look smaller in comparison, right? So that's the thing about the ears. Sometimes when you have that really, really aggressive, like, resonance, like how we found it right there on his vocal, it makes everything else kind of like disappear, like all the rumble and everything like that. You can't really hear it because we have a magnifying glass, where a magnifying glass lets you see stuff, the VOG, the bark a dog, and lets you just only hear the low mid. It's putting a magnifying glass on that low mid where the size of the vocal is at. So, shout out to that motherfucking Inspector Gadget. Another thing I want to talk about is people like, Jack Harlow. Jack Harlow, a lot of times people are like, how do the mainstream vocals sound so clean and so crispy, but they still got weight and they don't sound frail as that 808 is hitting very hard? Very important to know about rap music because that 808 is hitting hard. The kick, everything has size. So you don't want your vocals to seem frail or scaredy cat or very like a shy boy in the elementary school compared to all of the, bigger kids, which is like the 808, the kick and all that stuff. You don't want it to seem very small. So that's the thing about it. Understanding the microphone that you're using as well. What is the microphone giving you? You got a lot of the times people like Jack Harlow, these mainstream people, they're rapping into vocal chains like a Tube Tech, a Neve 73, also a Telefunken 251. Those type of, that vocal chain, right? It has components like a transformer, a tube. All of these things are adding weight. That's another, part of the reason why people like to use those microphones and stuff like that, because they literally add weight. They add the size, but not through necessarily frequency, but more through harmonic density. That's the word, harmonic density. It makes it feel dense, kind of like a pillow or something like that that's stuffed up with a certain type of cotton, versus where a cheap pillow that you buy from the dollar store, it might just have like little scrappy, like type of that cheap cotton that's not that dense. So by the time you put your head on it, it just falls through, kind of like that, where your vocal will just kind of fall through the mix and just be whatever. But if you can make your vocal a little bit more denser, then you can do that. So sometimes if you get a microphone like this, but that's a very expensive microphone. That's like a $18,000 microphone. Another great microphone as well is something like the Sony C800G, but the tube in that one is different. But either way though, it's still a Sony C800G. It still has a tooth. It still has a tube. It still has the warming characteristic. I would say maybe the Telefunken 251, it specializes a little bit more in the body for me personally. And the Sony C800G having that pinto tube inside of it is more for like that breathy type of asthma type of vocal, like that type of vocal, that hyperventilating vocal, you know what I mean? But the main reason why I'm talking about that is because you could simulate something like that in your DAW. Look, you got two options. It's either you buy the $20,000 microphone or you figure out how to get the skills to compensate for not having that high-end piece of gear. You got to get the $20,000 microphone or you got to get the $20,000 worth of skill and ability to recreate that in the DAW. So that's what I'm trying to show y'all how to do that today. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you don't have the microphone or not. Stop getting down on yourself just because you don't have $30,000, $50,000 to spend on all this crazy ass equipment. You just got to actually learn how to fucking engineer and put your heart into it. And that's what's really going to give you the outcome of making it sound good. So look, here's an alternative. If you cannot buy these crazy ass equipment and crazy microphone, that's what people in the mainstream are doing. They're coming in with a saturated vocal and they're cutting everything, in the bottom, like everything like below 80, 90, all that stuff. So they have a vocal that feels like it still has weight, but still clean at the same time. This is the trick. Okay, cool. Let's look at it. I like to use like a saturation plugin, something like a decapitator. And the specific type of tube I like to use is the triode tube. That's how you got to remember. The triode tube has even order harmonics, which add weight. So remember it like this. Triode tubes, are you even trying to get fat? That's how I remember it. And then a pento tube, which is like what a Sony C800G has in it, is I call it odd pent-up anger because, the pent-up tubes, the pento tubes, they produce odd order harmonics. Okay, so remember that shit like that. But cool. In this example where you're trying to get fatness, you want to use like something like decapitator T. You can use whatever else you want to use. You can use like a UAD pull tech, whatever you use, just whatever tube saturation that's going to give that weight, right? So the trick I like to do is I like to saturate my vocal a little bit with something like decapitator to get it nice, fat, and plump like a pig or a turkey that I'm about to roast, before they throw in that, that chicken into the oven. They got to plump it. They got to get nice and fat. They got to put a little gravy in it to make it look a little bit big, a little bit beefed up before you start cutting away all the meat after you cook it. It's the same shit like this. So look, the decapitator, triotube, you make the vocal a little bit fat. So listen to how much, you know, like it sounds like it's gaining a little bit weight. Listen to how many Twinkies it sounds like the lead vocal's about to eat.
Got it. Ain't nobody high as us, ain't talking buttercup. All we do is power puff, and I'm popping perks. Got me feeling pretty powerful. Pull up in the Porsche, then I push it down the avenue. Praying we all get paid, push the fake away they played. I'm posted with my partners, right with them till end of day. I'm seeing different colors, like kaleidoscope, and it be mostly green. I get a lot of dope, I be on psilocybin. Yeah, I be high as shit. They ask me where I been, on my way to get rich. I'm seeing different colors, like kaleidoscope, and it be mostly green. I get a lot of dope, I be on psilocybin. Yeah, I be high as shit. They ask me where I been, on my way to get rich. I took a look around me and I peeped how they all faking. Remember we be smoking, put a couple in rotation. I went and hustled hardest, so I started elevating. They couldn't keep up at all, so instead they turned to hating.
So instead of using an EQ to, you know, kind of add those frequencies back, what I did is I used the triotube to help bring some of that fatness back. But usually in a situation like this, you gotta listen to the 808. You gotta listen to the low end of the 2-track beat in order for you to make sure that you're not creating a mud patty, and to make sure that you're not creating a swamp pool like you in the Everglades. You gotta make sure you listen to the 808. Listen to how the 808 and the kick is hitting, and listen to the vocal, how the low end of the vocal's hitting, so that the low end, you gotta manage your low end so it's not sloppy, right? So I just want to go over this technique one more time using the Voice of God, VOG, because I prefer to use the Voice of God, but this is for people who don't have UAD, who don't want to buy the plugin. Okay, well, I just showed you how to use the free plugin, and it's going to sound just as good, but I prefer the VOG because the VOG kind of has like this saturation thing in it. Like, even if you try to do like the EQ move or the VOG, it's on a kick, on a bass, it's just something about the input of the unit. It kind of has like this just saturation. I don't know what it is, but it just helps add that weight. So let's look at it when we use the VOG as well as the decapitator.
I took a look around me and I peeped how they all faking. Remember we be smoking, put a couple in rotation. I went and hustled hardest, so I started elevating. They couldn't keep up at all, so instead they turned to hating. But I don't really blame them. If I was them, I'd probably hate to. If I broke it, fuck, I'd be wishing I was paid to. But I don't do no wishing, that's the difference between us. I recognize my mission ever since I ran it up. Can't let them hold me back, got some goals I'm trying to achieve. They ain't never sacrificed, but for this shit, bitch, I'ma bleed. I'd rather die standing than be living on my knees. Don't care about what they think, all this money give me peace. I'm seeing different colors, like kaleidoscope, and it be mostly green. I get a lot of dope, I be on psilocybin.
So as you guys can hear, it definitely sounds like the vocal has been, you know, gaining some weight, putting on a little bit of weight, eating some breakfast sandwiches, eating some ice cream, eating Pop-Tarts. You definitely hear the vocal sounds like it got fatter. So it depends on how you want to do it. You can do the saturation before the fact, then cut it off. That's kind of like what I prefer to do. I like to saturate it first, then do the Little Labs or the Bark of Dog, or you can do it the other way. And of course, last thing I want to say is always understanding the fact that the low mid is also the distance. You know, the more closer somebody is to you, like literally their heart is closer to you, like, you know, literally, like our ear identifies the low mid as proximity. You know what I mean? It feels a little bit more closer. Now the vocal is a little bit more upfront in your face just because of this technique. So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, go ahead and check out the Patreon as well, where you have a bunch of private and exclusive courses and everything like that. Don't forget to also let me know if you guys have any more different video suggestions. Appreciate you guys now. Peace.